guys, my name's Katie Arnson, if you don't already know that. I'm in my second year of university. I'm studying contemporary dance, and I was diagnosed with skin cancer. I start chemo in a few weeks, and so I'm posting this to somewhat awkwardly ask for financial support. I'm just gonna try and keep smiling. And love you guys.
Hello and welcome to Curzon Living Room, an ongoing season of live Q&A events on Curzon Home Cinema. My name is Rhianna Dhillon. I'm a film and TV critic, and this evening I'm talking about White Lie with co-directors Yonah Lewis and Calvin Thomas and stars of the film Kacey Rohl and Amber Anderson. The event is part of the 2020 Canada Now Festival, which celebrates the best in Canadian cinema. Canada Now is presented by Telefilm Canada in collaboration with the High Commission of Canada in the UK, and the films are exclusively available on Curzon Home Cinema. So if you're watching us live, we are taking your questions via comments on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Our Twitter handle is @CurzonCinemas, and if you could use the hashtag Curzon Living Room, that'd be really helpful because we can find your questions and we'll read out as many as we can. Thank you all so much for joining me this evening.
Thanks for having us.
This is great. And also thank you, Amber, especially, who's joining us from a car somewhere in Oxfordshire.
There is no thanks required. This is my mess up, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Don't be silly. We're delighted to have you. Thank you. And congratulations to all of you on White Lie, which is just a fantastic psychological thriller. It's really unnerving and brilliant. So Calvin and Yonah, let's start with you. People faking illnesses is a fascinating subject. Why did you decide to focus on that, and what was the research like for you?
Yeah, we decided to make a film about it because it was, just as you said, it was fascinating. We thought it had a built-in character, and often we start films with an idea or a concept or something like that, and then figure out characters to fit in that concept. This time we had a character from sort of these real life cases and real life stories. So that kind of got us excited. We didn't quite know how to tell that story, but we knew sort of someone faking cancer. There was quite a few cases in Canada and in the United States and around the world. We knew it was going to be something interesting. So about a decade ago, we first heard about someone doing it. And so we didn't know how to tell the story. So we sort of filed the idea away. And every couple of years, we're like, oh, remember that idea for someone faking cancer? And then 4 or 5 years ago, we actually sat down to write it and figure out how to do it.
That's incredible that it's been in the works for so long. And Yonah, the title White Lie is a giveaway, but we go straight in there with the deceit. You know, the first shot is of Catherine shaving her head. Why did you make that decision to show us that Catherine was lying from the outset?
Yeah, that was a decision we made pretty early on. We knew from the get-go we kind of wanted the audience to be in on it with her. Part of it was, she's doing something very despicable, and we wanted to sort of force you to sympathize with her to some degree. And so sort of pulling that rug out from under you halfway through the film would certainly change your opinion of this person, whereas at the beginning you're forced to confront this awful thing she's doing and then roll with it for the next 90 minutes. But then there was also sort of a more practical element to it, which was the film isn't that exciting conceptually. Just you can't really create a trailer, a poster, sell someone on it too easily if it's just here's a girl with cancer. Like there's nothing there. So we knew we wanted to get people to come watch us and think it was interesting, and we knew that the hook was that she's faking cancer. So leaving it until late in the game, we felt was a sort of a silly decision. We did get notes from several people, in the early sort of development and financing stages saying, oh, you should save this for later. It's such a good twist for later. But there's no point in having twists for later if nobody comes to see your movie in the first place.
That's a very good point. Kacey, I heard that your audition for the role of Katie was really something. So tell us about it and why you decided to play it the way you did in that very first instance.
Oh my goodness. well, I don't know if it was quite something. I shot the thing in my kitchen.
It looked like the Blair Witch Project. I always
well, yeah, so I had long hair
something.
at the time. Long hair. I tucked it all up in this bright pink little toque, and I like really went to town with some makeup, looked myself a little like Skeletor thing, a little over the top, which they in the retape I had to do. They were like, can you just calm down a little? So good note, can take it. And then in terms of my approach, I just I don't know, I had to find compassion for her really quickly. I don't think you can play a character like this without having some empathy about where she's coming from. So that was the seed that I tried to water. Yeah.
It sounds like, you know, from what I've heard you talk about before, that you were really like flying by the seat of your pants in terms of filming, because you were like, you were still casting on like your first day of filming. How did that work? Like Amber hadn't even come in by that point?
Not well is the answer. No, there were 30 when we broke down the script. The script read really quickly, and I think everyone kind of read it as, oh, it's a small little thriller. You know, obviously Kacey's in every single scene, so you're very focused on that one character. But when you break it down, there were 31 speaking roles, which is a fair bit for a film of our size. Yeah. And so the casting process just took a very, very, very long time. And yeah, 2 weeks into production, we were still casting some small parts. And I remember on day one, the weather was bad and we were outside. And so anytime you're shooting outside, it's complicated. And we were shooting Kacey in a car, and our producers walked over to Yonah and I and said, Amber's going to do the movie. And we said, oh, okay, very good. And then we just walked back to shooting. And then Amber came 2 days later or something, I think. So a lot of things were very last minute in the movie. And I mean, we're very lucky and so thankful for everyone that did participate in the film, because, you know, it doesn't look like we cast it at the last minute, but yeah, it's never ideal, but it's sometimes worth it to sort of not say yes to someone until you find the right person, and sometimes that takes a while.
I mean, you're so right.
And it's also,
sorry, go on.
It's also part of the trick in casting that's always so difficult too, is that the second you cast Amber, there was a whole bunch. She has a family in the film, so everybody has to look sort of related or connected. And we were bringing in somebody with an accent. And we loved Amber's accent. We didn't want her to change it. So we had to find people. So instantly, the second you cast one person here, you rejig everything over there. So there's sort of this constant game that we were playing. But I do think that on that first day when they came over to us, we were just sort of a level of shell shock all the way, that we were like thrilled inside, but we were like, oh, great. She said yes. Okay, move on to this next shot. But Amber, it must have just been insane, because you were on another film like a day before this.
Yeah, I was in Belgium playing a schizophrenic. with black hair and like this really bizarre asymmetrical fringe that looked like it had been cut with like nail scissors. And I wrapped on that film, and then I went back to London and had a day, and then I flew to Toronto. So it was like, and I was like on the plane, like learning scenes and stuff. It was mental. And it just felt like kind of jumping in head first, really. And we started, I think my first 2 days were 2 night shoots, and we started with the 2 kind of most intense scenes, definitely for my character, but I think also for Kacey's character, they were pretty intense scenes. And it was like we just met, and we had to kind of act as obviously as if we were in love with each other. And so it was just like, there was a lot of, I think, trust that had to be established very quickly.
How did you do that then? You know, you didn't have rehearsals, it sounds like. So how do you establish that kind of trust?
We had an evening. We had an evening of rehearsals. Wow. And I would like to say that we weren't that mean. We had one day before those 2 ones, and it was, you got to spend the whole time in bed.
Oh yeah. Still very vulnerable.
Which was nice for someone so jet lagged.
The first night shoot, I was in bed for most of the scenes, and so genuinely I was like, this sounds so unprofessional, and I'm not usually like this, I promise, but I was so tired. I'd been up for like 23 hours or something. And I remember, like, in between setups, sometimes I would just get into the bed and just sleep for 30 minutes, and then they'd be like, okay, Amber, and I'd be like, yep, ready, here I am.
Such a champ.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, but it was honestly it's probably one of the best experiences I ever had at work. I loved this film.
Yeah, because you got to sleep.
That's so lovely to hear. We've got our first audience question. This is Simone from London, who wants to know, Kacey, how did you get inside Katie's head? Because her deception is just a moral minefield.
Yeah, well, it sort of speaks to what I was saying earlier about having to like always ground any approach to her in empathy and compassion, and just try to connect to why somebody would be driven to this point. I tried to stay away from any news and any stories about cases like this. I didn't want to work from the outside in. I wanted to be inside out. So I spent a lot of time sort of sitting with that question about what would be the route that would drive somebody to these things. And then I also did a lot of physical prep. She's a dancer, and I tried to exhaust myself physically before I got to Hamilton, just because she's physically active every day, but I also think the activity of carrying a lie that large is quite exhausting. So I wanted to come at it from that way too.
Just to follow up on that, Kacey, so we used this for the trailer. We actually filmed you shaving your head, but we never intended to have the head shaving, the actual shaving your hair off, be in the film. But did that moment, even though it wasn't a part of the film, was that kind of like a moment where you were like, oh, it just feels like such a becoming the character moment. Did that have some effect on you?
Oh yeah, I'm super glad we have that footage. I'd done all of this prep beforehand, and I'd been, in these like other spaces of prep that I was more familiar with. And then it's kind of uncharted territory when you shave off all of your head. I'd never done that before, thank goodness. So, and I was lucky enough that it was a fun choice I got to make. But yeah, I think shaving my head really like locked things in and sunk Katie in a different way, because there was no way that even when I was out in the world on a weekend, or if I had any time off, I couldn't escape her. I was a bald gal in the world, so I was absorbing all of the ways that people were treating me and looking at me and all of that, and that all kind of fed into it.
That was really handily my next question, so thank you, Calvin. That was
Sorry,
really... No, that was great. It was good. The less talking I do, the better. We've got another question from Jen from Peckham, who has asked, can you talk about casting and working with Martin Donovan, because he's a big favourite of Jen's from his Hal Hartley films?
Yeah, he has a huge following from those movies. It's amazing. Martin was someone on our list for a while, and it was another moment where it happened a little bit late in the game. You don't always hear back right away from agents and stuff when you send the scripts, and it was another moment. I think there was a day where Yonah and I were stressed about all sorts of different things. We were very close to shooting, and you're juggling so many different things. And I remember the producers came over and they said, Martin said yes, and I think we were like, okay, good. And then we didn't even like really understand what that meant. But then we had one day with him. So everything that you see in the film with Kacey and Martin was done in one day. And it was a very tough day for so many reasons. Our location didn't have heat. So we were freezing cold, and Kacey doesn't have hair in the movie. So she was incredibly cold. And so there was it was a very stressful day, but working with him, and I'd like to hear from Kacey what she felt like working opposite him. But from our perspective, we were very stressed about making sure we got that scene in one day, because there was no coming back to that location. It was just kind of amazing to roll the camera and, oh my God, one, there's Martin Donovan, but two, he's in character and he's making, the script come alive. And it was sort of, you're just kind of in awe when two actors are just jiving and doing it so quickly with no rehearsal and not a lot of time in the day. It's kind of a magical thing that both, Kacey and Martin were able to just kind of get into this zone. And he's an intimidating guy, but was just incredibly professional. And just when that camera rolled, you're just like, whoa, okay, we're all sitting quiet, like, watching.
Kacey, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. That was the coldest day I've ever had on set. We shaved my head 4 times. My
Because
body
her
had
hair
this
was grown,
incredibly, it was terrifying. It would just sprout like I was a little chia pet. It was honestly kind of disgusting. But working with Martin, to stay on topic, was amazing. I mean, I think the fact that he just like came in and we didn't have a ton of time to like get to know each other sort of aided in the alienation between the two characters. And so we both just kind of had to jump in. And I mean, I've been such a huge fan of his for years. So I was just sort of like, it was one of those situations where you just sort of walk into the room and you're like, okay, I give it over. Like I've done all I can do. I'm just gonna respond and be here and try not to think about this super cool idol guy who's playing my dad. Yeah, but it was amazing. He's like one of those people who just like cracks open immediately. Yeah, it's a rare experience for me to enter into a space with this human I do not know, and to be able to feel so, I don't think safe is the right word, but just game. Like anything that came up, I was like, yeah, we're good.
Knowing that you were going to create something amazing. That's what it sounds like.
I mean, I hoped. I think I honestly just responded to what he was giving me, and he gave me so much. So thanks,
I feel
Martin.
like we did this a lot to you, Kacey, where we just kept throwing all of you in together without ever having really a chance to get to know each other. It'd be like, you have a long history. Pretend you have a long history.
Well, it's good, right? Because Katie had kind of have a bit of a wall, like, you know, various levels with different people. So it worked well for me.
Actually, that's something that I wanted to ask you, Amber, because Jen's character is like Jen is understanding to the point of sainthood. Like she desperately wants to believe Katie, to love her, be loved in return. So did you, it sounds, you know, did you have time to sort of form like a backstory for her and her motivations and think about, you know, life before the film started, if you know what I mean?
The backstory wasn't so much what felt important in that sense. It was more, we had a lot of conversations around how, in many ways, and again, I'm not at all trying to speak for Kacey, but Kacey's character is in many ways like an addict, you know, and there were many similarities between that relationship and relationships that I've seen or experienced where it's been with an addict, you know, and that type of behavior that goes on, and that type of gaslighting. And how often when you're the person in that relationship, you often see what you want to see and hear what you want to hear, because you so believe in someone's potential and you so believe that they can be the best versions of themselves. And so you just almost willfully ignore red flag after red flag, you know. And I think obviously this is a very specific subject matter, which is that someone's lying about an illness, but I think it could apply to lots of different relationships. And so I think that was more, I guess what I was thinking about was just connecting to that type of place of being so in love with somebody and so wanting to kind of see the good in them and believe in them as a person, and being in that place in a relationship where basically you're not really asking the questions you should be, you know. And even when I watch the film now, there are certain moments where I kind of go, oh my God, like, you know, if that was me now, I'd be like, hold on a minute, you know?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like, you need this money for this, and what, you know, there would be questions, but I you know, I completely believe it too, because I think yeah, we've all been there in some way. I'm sort of rambling a bit, but that was more what I was thinking about. It was that sort of knowing that someone's probably gaslighting you, but not wanting to see it yet, I think.
Yeah, it's a very realistic performance, actually.
Oh, thanks.
And that was sort of what attracted us to Amber for the role in particular. Was we had a long conversation about this before we cast her in it, and we just thought her particular take on this, the sort of kind of anger she brought to this character in a way that made it not just that saint, which was what we were kind of worried. Often you have a really interesting lead character, and then like the person beside them is just kind of like not thrilling if you don't give them some, you know, she has a shaved head, she's faking cancer, there's so much going for her that, you know, Kacey brings a lot to that, but at the same time there's a lot built in underneath it. Whereas Jen's role was, she was there, she was nice, she was supportive, like, you know, that was sort of where it ended to some degree. And we really wanted an actor who could add something extra special to that. And we sort of felt that Amber was able to do that in a way that sort of was unexpected for us. You know, part of it was, I mean, maybe I won't even say this because I don't know, in theory, people have seen this movie now.
I'm sort of assuming they are, if they're watching this.
Yes,
I think
okay.
we could probably do spoilers, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to spoil anything too much, but there's a question of, you know, if you find out, would you stay with this person or not? And it was just have an interesting conversation we had with Amber about that prior to casting her that I think really helped us sort of solidify that she was the right person for this role.
Also, I think with the ending of the film, I mean, in many ways, again, not wanting to spoil anything, but also honestly, in many ways, there is a sort of ambiguity to the ending. It just kind of cuts, you know, and you are slightly, I think I know what happens, but I do think in general you're kind of left with the question of like, does she stay or does she go? But I think even with that kind of hanging in the air, I do think you still get to see Jen get to a place where she's been lied to one too many times, you know, and so it's like she isn't a pushover, actually. She's really in love, and I think there's a difference between that, you know, and being kind of a pushover that will just take anything.
Yeah,
I don't
that's a good point.
She is. I think she's just, you know, really loyal and really devoted, and also kind of, you know, the type of person that I want to be in a relationship in many ways.
She's lovely. She's so lovely.
There's like a wholesome purity to her that I think a lot of us want to have and love, and you know, I think she just she loves someone. I think that's it for her. I think she's just very loyal and very devoted, and I think that's really beautiful in many ways. So it was nice to exist in that place after playing a schizophrenic for 12 weeks.
Well, I mean, I think that speaks to sort of what we were going for to some degree, which is that you and your family and everything that you represented in the film was meant to be what Kacey was sort of fighting for. The reason that she was doing this to some degree was this world that she wanted to exist in, not this Martin Donovan drag race unhappy world, but this other sort of supportive, warm world that you were a part of. And so I do think, because the film is so much from Kacey's point of view, that there was this, whether it was intentional or not in the writing, but you do become sort of this slightly saintly sort of, there's this like platonic ideal of what a relationship is, whether or not that's, you know, a realistic thing or not. You know, there's a reason that you're fighting for this, because it seems almost too good to be true.
Absolutely.
Also, I'd be really interested to hear what Kacey would want to say on this, but also I think something that makes it really interesting is that it's not just a case of like someone's good and someone's bad either. Like I think Katie is so in love with Jen as well, and I think that's what makes it so difficult. It's not just like she's just taking the piss and lying to her, you know, for no reason. I think it's rooted, it's really grounded in some really real feelings of like real devotion from her side too, and I think that's what the kind of conflict is as well. And you know, yeah, I don't know, Kacey, what you think about that. But
yeah, I think she's found someone in Jen that's so profoundly lovable, just like at first blush, and that's all she wants. Like that, for someone to love her, to be loved, is like the seed of it all. So when she finds this, it's like she has to keep this lie going, because she's hooked on the lie, but she's also doesn't quite have a clean path to why she's worthy of that love. You know, she thinks it's because she's unwell, and if she doesn't have that, then she might lose the love. But yeah, I think if without that love, it would just be so sinister. You know, it would be using and abusing, and I think that's there as well with the love, but it's not purely that. You know,
I think that's the main reason that we have empathy with Katie, is because of that love that is very sort of evident.
Yeah, you just kind of want to stop her and go, honey, you're loved. Like,
yeah,
stop. Yeah.
The film sort of goes towards the inevitable once everything starts to get out, and social media shaming is very prevalent and a very real form of punishment and a way of ostracizing so-called wrongdoers at the moment. You know, what were you trying to say with the film about this fairly new practice of trial by Twitter?
I mean, like cancel culture was not a thing when we wrote the script, or even like maybe made it. Like, I'm not sure I knew that term, correct me if I'm wrong, when we were making the film. I actually think where we are now in the way that people are canceled so quickly with the Twitter mob and how that happens so frequently, I think it actually would have changed probably the way that we would have thought of some of the ways social media was portrayed in the film. It's funny that the film doesn't feel that old and is just coming out now, but the way that people use social media for these certain things is a little bit different, even just from the year and a half ago that we shot the film.
And that was true throughout the whole like writing and development and shooting process of the film. I think like I don't think the sort of social media shame, that kind of thing, was really played a role in like our first draft in 2015. It was probably there to some degree, but it was just in the subsequent drafts, and as we were getting closer to actually shooting it, we started incorporating that more as it became more of our our lives every day. And I think we even had to make changes. Like I think at the beginning, a great deal of what Kacey was doing, Katie's character, no, whatever, you know what I'm saying. Your name's always confusing.
I'll respond to either. I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay. Katie/Kacey, what they were doing was almost exclusively on Facebook, I believe, in the very early drafts. And then as we started going on, we realized that actually young people don't use Facebook very much. So we changed it to other medium. But we kept Facebook for the father because, that generation tends to still use it. So there was sort of this like slow evolution of the way that sort of changed over time. But I don't think we really realized the way in which that was as significant. I mean, it was there, but it just grew in importance, every minute as this film went along.
To move to like the craft of the film, Ian from Islington has asked he's saying the photography is wonderful, and is asking, is it 35 millimeters? Is it difficult to do these days working on 35mm in a digital world?
It's different. You have to have everyone on board and sort of understand what it means to shoot on 35, especially with the small budget, I think, because we don't have all the resources and we do have to sort of cut corners here and there. But what allowed us to shoot 35 was choosing the format. So you can shoot something called 2x 35mm, which to make a quick explanation, you're only using half of a normal frame of film. So you're kind of using only half of it. And so you get that widescreen look. And so that allowed us to get a lot more bang for our buck in terms of the amount of film that we were using. But for Yonah and I, it was something that we decided early on that whether it was 16mm or full 35mm or 2x 35mm, whatever it was, that we really wanted to shoot film. We knew working with a higher budget that we could make it work. So we from day one, that was on our wish list, and we didn't budge on that, and we sort of made everything work in and around it. There's only one lab in Canada that develops 35 at a sort of a professional feature film level, where we could get dailies basically every other day. So our editor could edit as we went. So it is challenging in that we were shooting in just outside of Toronto in Hamilton, Ontario. And so every day we were shipping film to Montreal, which the lab is. So there is definitely, it's not as easy as just dumping a card with the digital footage, but in our opinion, it's worth all that workflow to figure that out, because film means a lot to us, and we certainly are very happy with how the film looks.
Yeah, it's absolutely worth it.
We sat down with our lead producer, Karen Harnish, I think, with an early draft. I think she'd never read it before. We showed her a second or third draft of the script, and we said there's sort of three really important things for us going forward with this that we really want. There's like a checklist. One, which is we want to shoot film. Two, the lead actor needs to shave their head. And three, we needed X amount of days to shoot it. And I think we got 2 out of 3 of those things in the long run. Kacey shaved her head, we were able to shoot film. And we didn't have as many days to shoot as we would have liked, but that's the nature of low budget filmmaking.
Also, I thought
interesting things like from an acting perspective with the film, because you really only did get like a certain amount of takes, so you kind of knew that you had to just like bring your game as much as possible. And then it would be like they'd check the gate, and there would be like a hair on the gate, and then you would have just done like what you thought was like a really great take, and then you'd kind of have to do it again. And so there were things like that, but it was really fun, I thought.
There's quite a morale
And
booster at the end of, as Amber said, basically before you move on, you make sure there's no hair in the film gate, because if there is, it could have affected the first take or it could have affected the last take. You really don't know. And so we were getting many bad gates because 2x35 can be a little finicky, and so it's a little dirtier, and dirt is magnified. Anyways, it was very unfortunate. We were getting all these bad gates, and that really brought everyone down, and we got to go again. But I think like halfway into the shoot, when we were starting getting good gates, we got everyone clapping. It was a very lovely thing. Yeah.
We actually got, as our like wrap gifts, we all got like long sleeve top that on one arm it said good gate and on the other arm it said bad gate, because it, like kind of it was like we were hearing it all day every day, you know, and it would be like that feeling of suspense when you'd be waiting for Matt, our focus puller, to check the gate, and we would just all be going like, oh my god, is it okay, and
we made a dirty movie, essentially. It was a very dirty film. There's a lot of dirt.
I do want to say though, shout out to Chris Liu, who is our DOP. He's like such a calming presence. So even when we were having all of these like bad gates and having to even reshoot stuff or whatever, he was very chill, which was,
you need that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly was spinning out of control. So thank you.
You just before we wrap up, I can't sort of leave you without talking about Lev Lewis, because he's sort of been like such a, you know, huge, you know, role, plays two roles in this film. He's your composer and also your editor, and your process of editing is fascinating because you edit while filming. You mentioned this. That's very unusual. Why is that important for your storytelling, Yonah?
Well, Lev actually plays more than two roles. He's sort of the third creative member of our team. And so he's heavily involved in, like, he's the first person to give us notes on the script. He's the one who, honestly, when we were busy doing a lot of work, he was the one who was doing most of the casting work alongside our casting directors, going through people and picking things. So he's sort of, you know, his eyes are on everything. But for us, it's super important to be editing while you shoot, primarily because it allows you to find mess ups and deal with them before you've moved on. So, for example, you know, we had a big pivotal scene with Kacey and Amber near the end, and there was some issues with the lens, with some issues with hairs in the gates and things that we just didn't catch. And so, you know, a big pivotal scene had a bunch of crap in it and was unusable. So we managed to, find a little bit of time in there to go and shoot it again. The problem with Lev editing as we go is that he instantly tells you if something is no good, even if you don't want to hear it. So, you know, he's very brutal, and we've learned to live with it. I mean, it's very helpful for our process, but we're off, you know, we come home, we've just had a great day, and he's like, here's the scene, but I cut all of, 3/4 of it because this is crap. And you're like, okay, I guess it was worth the time shooting it.
Less so on this film. That has been the case in previous movies, but we would come home. Yeah. There was something very exciting, and this speaks to 35 again, is that when you're shooting on set and everyone looking at what we're shooting, the monitor that we have is like, you can barely see an image. It's very bad. It's very low resolution because it's essentially a very tiny video feed that has been installed into the 35mm camera, so that you at least can sort of see what the framing is. So I'm making it sound worse than it is, but it is pretty bad. And so
it's pretty bad.
We would go home, and during the day while we were out on set, Lev would get the footage from the previous day or a few days before, and he'd download it, and he'd be the first person to see anything that we shot for real. And so we'd get to go home, and you'd see that developed 35mm, and that was just so thrilling because it's completely different than what you would have seen on set. So there was this sort of like euphoria of like coming home and being like, ooh, we get to see what we shot for the previous day. So there was, yes, he would tell us that we fucked up here and there, but it was nice to have a bit of that high of just seeing what you had shot and that what had been developed.
Yeah, no, there's definitely highs and lows to it. But he, I mean, I guess your question is, he's also the composer as well of the film. So he's doing so much. And I think finding that score, the right score for the film, was like sort of a long, complicated process for the three of us, trying to find something that was right, that wasn't too big and melodramatic, and and wasn't just background music at the same time. Finding something that wasn't too horror, wasn't too thriller, but sort of was all of these things at the same time. And I think we all sort of think he nailed it.
He did.
But it wasn't easy getting there.
I mean,
I just have to jump. Can I jump in?
Yeah,
Okay,
go.
so I mean, music is a huge part of my work. I always listen to it, and it's very helpful for me. And I hadn't heard the score at all prior to seeing the movie for the first time. And when I heard it for the first time, it was this crazy experience of like it just made like it was Katie. I don't know how to explain it other than that, but it was like it felt like Lev got it. And we like somehow it mind melded, and this anyway. So Lev is brilliant.
I agree. Lev is brilliant. I think you're all brilliant. Actually, the film is wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, Yonah Lewis, Calvin Thomas, Kacey Rohl, and Amber Anderson. Thank you. I also want to thank Canada Now for making tonight's event possible. And White Light is available to stream on Curzon Home Cinema. So if you enjoyed the film, which I'm sure you did, and this event, please tell your friends. And also upcoming events on Curzon Home Cinema include on Thursday, the 13th of August, I'm going to be in conversation with director Eva Riley about her feature debut, Perfect 10. And also joining us will be the film star Frankie Box. And then on Monday, the 17th of August, journalist Ian Hayden Smith will interview director Jess Swale about Summerland. Really incredible films in this season. You can follow Curzon Cinemas on Twitter and Facebook for all the latest updates. I've been your host tonight, Rhianna Dhillon. You can listen to me on BBC Six Music on Monday mornings. Thank you so much for joining us. Everyone have a wonderful evening. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks, Rhianna.
So
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.